Hello, everyone, and happy December. It is December 2nd. It's a beautiful day here in Colorado. Welcome to another Caring Counts live episode. If this is the first time you're watching one of these, our goal with these is to connect people in memory care because we believe the more connections you have, the more support you can have. And we're super excited to dive into trust and acceptance today. Caring Counts is brought to you by Applewood, our house. Today, we have Jimmy Dean, a family member at Applewood, our house, and we're super excited to jump in. Hi, Jimmy. We're super excited to jump into trust and acceptance. And we have kind of an overarching question, but before we get into any of that, Jimmy, welcome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Jimmy, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and your mom?
Yes, I have been my mother's main caregiver for about 10 years. She is from Kansas, but moved out here a number of decades ago and has spent most of her life in Centennial, Colorado. She had some sort of TIA event around 2009, which quickly led to her having aphasia, primary progressive aphasia. And it has marched along pretty steadily. And I would consider her to have more general dementia type symptoms from, other types of dementia at this point. She has been in memory care for 5 years approximately. She's been with Applewood, our house, almost 2 years, I believe, and very happy there. I love my mother very much and want the best for her, but realized early on that, a memory care facility is important in one's safety and care and success. So I'm very happy to have her at Applewood, our house, and glad to talk about my experiences.
We appreciate that. We appreciate how open and honest you are with trust and acceptance, because I think that's a big part of all of this. And so the big kind of question that we want to cover today, the kind of basis of questions, is what is something that you know now that you wished you knew before all of this happened?
I think it's important to recognize that finding out as much information as possible right away is exceedingly important because it helps you deal with what you're actually in the middle of a lot easier. I wish I had known more about her disease as she started going through it, because my reactions and care and help would have been different. I think I would have probably not taken on some of the stress. It doesn't make it easier, but it certainly would have made it easier to conceptualize what was going on, and then my reactions would have been better. I just wish I had known more and had taken the time to know more immediately. But you just don't want to face it, and so you don't recognize what's happening. I think if you have an inkling that something's going on, you should probably start arming yourself with information, because it would make things a lot easier, on what was happening. Another thing about that is if you rely on doctors or medical folks to tell you what's happening, you have to understand that they may not know what's happening. They may not realize what's happening. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but it is possible that you may know more than they would initially because you're around your loved one more often and it can diagnose them a little quicker. The internet provides us with lots of information to figure that out. I was completely blown away with the amount of information that was available for aphasia folks. And I was not able to get a lot of it from the doctors because aphasia is not a affliction that is highly talked about within neurology. So you have to kind of arm yourself with knowledge, I think, because you can't expect those in the medical world to always be the best resource for you.
Let's dive into that for just a moment here. Arming yourself with knowledge, and I think a very natural reaction is especially when something like this first happens, when the timing is right there and it's very fresh and new. A very natural reaction would be, I don't want to know what's coming. It's scary to know what's coming. Um, I have definitely felt those feelings around different things in my life, not wanting to research, not wanting to know because it's scary. How did you get to a place where you could say, okay, this is going to be more helpful, and it is going to be scary, but it's going to help me in the long run to know, to arm myself with this information?
Well, it's easy when your loved one is going through something to, I don't know, chalk it up to old age or forgetfulness or something like that. And I suppose with dementia and Alzheimer's and other mental ailments, as they come on slowly, you might overlook them, easily. My mother had, I guess she had a stroke, I believe. It's kind of hard to say, but had I reacted quicker at that time and known what was going on at that time, some of the things I could have done would have been better. There's a lot of news about people with aphasia and dementia and how like speech therapy right away can help prolong some things or give some tools for helpfulness. But if you're not like providing that immediately, a couple years later, it's too late on some of those fronts. It's difficult to provide stuff after the fact. Speech therapy is really important for people with aphasia. Not everybody benefits from it, but in my situation, it would have been very helpful right away. And I didn't really realize that we needed to do that, partially because she wasn't diagnosed for a couple of years with that. In terms of, the medical field not diagnosing her. A lot of times they just said she was having memory problems and give her memory drugs and things. That didn't do anything for her. So had I reacted to aphasia at the time, I could have provided, I think, better onboard care for her. It wasn't until I attended an Alzheimer's Association thing, not unlike what we're attending now, that I understood kind of what I needed to be doing. I was already in process of doing stuff, but my own mental capacity to understand what was going on changed a lot when I heard other people talking about it. And giving information about it and realizing there was resources like support groups and stuff out there to give me that information. So I think if you don't avail yourself of that stuff right away, you miss out on a lot of opportunity to maybe create a world that is better for the long term. And you're going to go through processes, stages where it changes. So yeah, you can't stop it. It does, it marches along, but each stage can be dealt with tools that you get yourself, and if you arm yourself with something and it turns out later that that's not what you needed, maybe the affliction changes and you get diagnosed with something else, at least narrowing it down is helpful, just figuring it out. I know so much about aphasia at this point that when I have visits with people, I tend to know more than they do. It doesn't make their knowledge not helpful. It just means that I'm better able to implement things that people tell me. And I don't have to wander around in the wilderness trying to figure out what's going on.
You had talked about the meeting with the Alzheimer's Association being kind of that turning point for you to really go out and arm yourself with this information, go find the information. And how does that, what was that like for you around trust and acceptance from that Alzheimer's Association meeting?
Well, I think there were some specific stories. This gentleman that was giving the talk had an uncle that he ended up having to take care of. And the uncle was Japanese and had reverted to his original language while he was in the facility that he was in. But prior to that, this gentleman was taking care of his uncle. And was telling some very interesting stories about his uncle getting very angry and yelling all the time. And your immediate reaction to that is, oh, I'm going to yell back because I don't want to be talked to this way. Or why are you getting so upset? Well,
Hmm.
that's not the appropriate reaction that I learned. I mean, you have to kind of be in the moment with them. So reacting at them is not good. Reacting with them is better. So, yelling along with them, getting excited along with them, it was something I learned. You have to realize they're in a state of agitation, and you can do better if you're kind of there with them. Also, he was telling a story about moving a piece of furniture in the hallway at night that he thought was in the way of his uncle trying to get to the bathroom. Well, as soon as he moved the piece of furniture, the uncle got lost, because that was a like centerpiece in the path to get to the bathroom. Understanding these little things is very helpful. I know he also mentioned that when his uncle ended up being in a facility, his uncle would go around and steal things from other people's rooms. And obviously that's alarming, but it's not an unheard of behavior in a memory care or adult care facility. That happens quite a bit, actually. And he was very alarmed. Oh no, what am I going to do about this? And the staff just looked at him and said, "It's okay. At night we collect it, we put it back." You have to learn to trust those that know more about this than you do. You can learn a lot about the disease, and that's something you should take on. But caregiving, that's a whole nother beast. You should learn to trust caregivers, especially ones that seem to be experienced, and you can tell if somebody kind of has it together and seems to have the knowledge base that you can trust. There's obviously some people that are short term. The caregiver turnover can be high, especially now. COVID has made things very stressful. So, I mean, there's a lot of turnover and things like that. But you can trust certain folks, and they'll kind of tell you, "Hey, don't worry about this. It's okay. Let me explain how it fits in with everybody." So that you can say, "Okay, I'm not the only one seeing this. Other families see this," and it helps you feel less stressed about it. That's where support groups come in handy. I attended an aphasia support group at Littleton Adventist Hospital for a while, and it really was nothing more than people just chatting, But I got to see lots of other loved ones with their aphasiatic, loved one there, and it made you feel better. It just did. You went home and you didn't feel so overwhelmed because you said, "I'm not alone."
Other people are experiencing what I'm experiencing, and I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, I think that's really important for you not to be alone. And maybe you don't have family to surround yourself with. Obviously, family can be great, but we all know there are situations where, maybe family's not available. Maybe you have no additional family. Friends are great. Support groups are great. People are great. Anybody is great. And I actually found really common amongst people who get to be of an age where you have parents that are getting older. If you mention to people at the grocery store, "Oh, I have a loved one that has dementia," you'd be surprised like how many people say, "Oh yes, I've been through that." It's really common. And it does make you feel like better when people say, "Yes, I know what you're experiencing."
Yeah, I think that's really important, and that's why we kind of started these Caring Counts live episodes, is to really connect people with other people that they can find that have been through this, or professionals that can help, or things like that. And so, with that being said, with where you are with your mom, what would you tell someone that's just starting out, that their loved one just got diagnosed, a week ago?
This is a very difficult decision-making road. I think it's just difficult because of some factors that come into play. Resources are very important. Financial resources and educational resources are both equally needed. But just because you don't have maybe access to certain kinds of resources, that doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for you to engage in successful situations for your family. The there are plenty of resources the state offers to help with this. You just have to ask. There's lots of things that the state of Colorado provides for this kind of difficulty. If you have the resources to, access a adult type facility, private facility, obviously that's great. But most people don't start off there. Most people start off with dealing with mom or dad or loved one at home, spouse at home, or next door, like you go visit or something like that. Providing them maybe a caregiver throughout the day even for a couple of hours, a couple times a week can be helpful. Most of these hourly care staff, they have minimums of like 2 or 3 hours. And the prices range anywhere from like $15 to $25 an hour, depending on, right now, depending on who you go with. But, being a person with a job, trying to take care of a loved one, that's really hard. Sometimes a particular loved one in a family will have to step up. That usually happens. It's very common for one person to be ahead of the game in that versus the rest of the family. And it's usually because of where you are in your life. I think the key here is don't panic. Look for the resources. Look for them ahead of time. Realize that it may come to needing to put your family member in a facility of some type, but you don't have to jump there immediately. But get all the resources for all the stages. Learn what's happening, and provide that care. I used to drive from my home to my mother's home to see how she was doing every day. Well, that was great because it kept some distance between me and my mom, but I was doing that drive every day. Sometimes, is it better for them to move in with you or, that kind of stuff? If you can't have them move in with you because of children or circumstances, maybe having that person check in on them can be what you need. Just don't be afraid of all this. Learn, get the resources, and implement them. And I would, again, go back to get them ahead of time. Be aware of what's available ahead of time so that you don't have to go scrambling to find out when the worst happens.
Right.
For my situation, my mom was going to some adult daycare kind of situations. And then all of a sudden one day she just walked out the front door of one, luckily I wasn't too far away. So, we were able to deal with it. It was okay. I mean, you must realize that things like that are going to happen and you need to be prepared when they're going to happen. Wandering is a huge one, that kind of stuff. So I would just say arm yourself beforehand.
One thing I'm a huge advocate for is if you start looking into resources and you come across a place online like Applewood Our House, if you come across our website or any other assisted living, memory care, someone in this space, if you give them a call, most of the time, I would say a lot of the time, they're going to point you in the right direction for the care that you are looking for, or at least get you connected to the right people that can help you find the care that you need. I think that's a big thing that a practical step that you can start to take. And with that, the thing you said around just don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it and get the information that you need. How did you get to, at the risk of sounding repetitive, how did you get to a place where obviously the emotions are running high? This is a stressful situation as well. So how did you get to a place where you can find that information that you were able to not only find it, but accept it and digest that information as helpful?
Well, as soon as a month after my mom's TIA event, my mother knew she was losing some faculties. I mean, within a month, she was aware of it. And I went through a very long process of figuring this all out. Again, she wasn't diagnosed for a couple of years. Had I known that, I probably would have done some other things up front. But the first year or two, we did a lot of neurology visits and things like that with doctors. And I think you just got to jump in and realize that you got to use your knowledge base, read a lot, make sure you know what the diagnosis is. I did not get the correct diagnosis from the doctors up front. That's another thing you got to deal with is the current medical situation you're in the right one for your parent? There are certain medical groups that strive to be great for care if you're not really sick. But if you happen to be somebody who's quite ill, I mean, there are better services out there. So make sure that the insurance and the medical group you're with is going to support where you're going. And you kind of want to get it like checked out ahead of time so you're not having to make this change as a reaction. You want to make sure, okay, it looks like my parent might have Alzheimer's. Is this medical group the best for somebody with Alzheimer's? And you have to do some reviews and, talk to them about it, see if they have support groups, ask questions. If you're finding it's a negative for you, then move them to a different medical group. It's easier to do that. You need that medical piece up front, get that worked out, with the insurance and everything. As she moved along, I tried a lot of different things. I did some speech therapy. That's difficult, especially if the medical group is not very supportive in that. So that's why I suggest looking for one that is supportive. We went to the University of Colorado Boulder's Speech and Language Center and did some stuff up there. I actually hired somebody to help my mother do some speech when I had to work and things like that. Not a licensed speech person, but to help her do some of her homework, so to speak, or something like that. I found it very helpful to do that. You just, I think, need to address what it is that's going on and then go, okay, I need to go out and find all the pieces to this so that you're aware of what's happening. What I think your question leads to is the more you learn, the more it's going to be easier for you to have conversations with people about the affliction. So if you have to call the insurance, you know what it is you're doing when you call the insurance, learning about how the insurance deals with the affliction. For example, neurology and memory is a different piece to most medical groups. It's not just general doctor, it's a specialty thing. So you got to figure that out and how it works. Medications, do medications come into play with somebody with these issues? They certainly can. Work closely with your doctor. You don't want to just medicate your parent or your loved one because they're having issues, but some medications can be useful, with helping their day to be more successful. It's not for me to say who should do that and who shouldn't, but you should be armed with the knowledge of that with your doctor and those around you. And then getting these specialty pieces in place, just to help me accept the changes that I saw. And finally, when I finally decided to hit a memory care facility for my mother, knowing that it was safer for her, I realized I could not provide her the safety that she needed, that, on a 24-hour basis, I did have to sleep. I just was not there. And you weigh that, okay, do you do in-home care? Do you do a facility? You kind of have to figure that out. Well, if you know as much as you can about this, when you go interview facilities and look at them, you're better able to decide, is this the right fit? There are a lot of people with beginning stages of these diseases that will fit right into a pretty facility, and it'll be good for them because it's like a retirement home almost, and they have fireplaces and bookcases and, pretty fire pits and parks and, okay, that's great for somebody that can appreciate that. But, my mother was not there. She was already beyond a lot of that. What she really needed was the care. And so for me, what I found was best was talking to the staff at these facilities and finding out about them. And I knew right away that the facilities that I liked were the ones that staff seemed to know what they were doing. And the bookcases and fireplaces were irrelevant. You constantly want to put your parent or somebody in a position to be around something that's nice and you want them to be happy. But that's not where this goes. I mean, you need to make sure the people taking care of your loved one are able to do it. That's where resources are important. So you got to arm yourself. And to get back to your initial question about this, I just started calling, everything. You just do. And it stinks. It's horrible. It takes a long time. You're going to visit places, getting information. It takes a long time, but you just have to do it. There's no choice other than that.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying around, being able to get to a place where you can educate yourself, so you can empower yourself to ask the correct questions, to find the correct fit for your loved one, in a facility or a home, whatever that might look like. And I think the point that you made, I mean, what would you tell someone that's at that place? They're making these phone calls, they're calling the insurance, they're looking at facilities, they're calling the doctors, going to speech therapy, they've got all of this on their plate, plus all of the things that they're doing in their quote unquote normal life, their work, their family, their kids, things like, what would you tell someone that's there?
Well, my personal experience may be different than others. There are some people that want mom or dad or spouse or loved one to be right around the corner because they don't have the ability to drive 30 minutes, to go visit somebody. Maybe there's a better facility further away, but they just don't have the time to go do that. Well, okay. So if that's your need, then you need to make sure you focus on places that fit that need and don't wander around, Cost can be something. And these things are expensive. Private care is expensive, If you don't have the money for private care, there are places that are public care. And, if that's what you got to do, then do it. You just got to do it and just stay on top of it and make sure the care is okay. Putting your loved one in a facility doesn't mean your care stops. You're going to have to make sure that they're getting the care they need by communicating, But, if you can do private care, well, if you can drive an extra 30 minutes and save some money, you should probably, because you're looking at your loved one's overall budget for long-term. You want to help them survive, on their income for as long as they can. So sometimes an extra drive could save them some money, things like that. Again, a $7,000 facility may look really cool, but maybe the care stinks, maybe they look really nice, but they're just not helpful for your loved one. I discovered that my mother thrived better at a facility like Applewood, our house, because of the family community style atmosphere that the smaller home provided. She thrived better in that because she got more social attention. A larger facility, they do lots of activities, but they're not always applicable to everyone. They do these memory games and stuff like that. My mom has aphasia. She can't talk. So that was kind of a useless activity for her, So I was kind of like, what is she getting out of this? But she did thrive with music. She loved music. And a lot of the facilities provide music, and that's great. All facilities generally do music. The food too. There are some with like really highly sought after chefs and stuff like that. Okay, that's cool if your parents like that sort of thing. But, my mother was kind of like, she grew up on a farm. She would eat anything. So, I obviously wanted to have good food, but not be burdened with an extra amount of money just because the chef is highly sought after, that kind of stuff. But that's my experience. I mean, it may be important to you to have those kinds of things. So I think you have to step back and say, what's needed here? And that starts at, do we take care of mom at home?
Mm-hmm.
Do we hire somebody to help her? Okay, we're going to take care of mom for a little while until this gets worse, and then we'll think about a facility. Every step here, every stage you go through, you've got to treat it separately. Ask yourself the questions. What do we want here? What would, mom, dad, husband, wife want? And not overburden yourself with long-term terror. Learn, educate yourself, figure out what's out there, but also don't freak out. I mean, do it as it comes. Do it when you have time. Usually this happens pretty suddenly, I think, for a lot of people. So yeah, you got to jump on it kind of quick. But, okay, let's say your mom's at home with you. Well, maybe you should start looking at long-term care facilities before she gets or he gets to that stage, that kind of thing. Again, it's all about your experience. But, my experience was the smaller place was better for my mom, but I didn't know that right away,
Right.
You just got to
Right.
ask, what do you think is the right fit for your parent?
It brings us all the way back to arming yourself with the knowledge. The knowledge is the power there. And I think the first step, before I say my next point, I want to really quickly touch on, your point of don't freak out is, I think, a lot easier said than done. But if you have the people around you that have been through this before, like you said, the person at the grocery store has experienced, oh, I've been through that. If you surround yourself with those types of people that know the questions to ask, or at least maybe the first two questions to ask to get you started, then I think you're off on a really, really solid footing, rather than when you were going through all of the things that are needs, close to home, not close to home, budget, food, bookcases and fireplaces, the care, what does mom want? That can get really overwhelming. If you have someone or a group of people that you can talk to about these things, then at least you can get started around what questions do I even start with?
Well, and I think this is a consumer-driven thing here we're talking about, in a way. We're talking about the care of your loved one and the mental and emotional process of accepting it and how you react to it. But then when you start looking at the need for care and help, it's you got to pay for it, or insurance pays for it or something. Treat it like looking at a fridge. You got to go out to Yelp and reviews, and you can read real quickly, hey, this place has got a lot of bad reviews, probably shouldn't go there,
Right.
Or read the reviews and go, well, what are people complaining about? Okay, these seem kind of silly. Maybe this place is all right, or hey, look, the reviews are fantastic. This looks like a great place to go. Another thing you should do is just go in and, walk around and look around and see what's going on with facilities. It kind of helps you realize, okay, people know what they're doing. The support groups are great too. People at support groups will say, oh yeah, you should call this person or do this person, or, that kind of stuff. If you start asking questions, you'll find the information's there.
I think one thing I wanted to touch on too, like being able to go and look at we always talk about at Applewood, we always talk about the different buildings have kind of different personalities. And if you see a bunch of them, if you see all 5 of our locations, you can kind of see each one has its own personality, and you can really find the right fit for you with that. Now with COVID, I would so encourage, and I'm such a big advocate to make the first phone call to, if you're considering Applewood or any other facility that you want to look into and get a feel for, make a call. We are all doing our very best and working really hard to get the right fit for you and for you to find that right fit. And with COVID, it's obviously become a lot more challenging, but we all have working together to find that right fit for you.
It's important to recognize the difference between a standalone memory care facility and some of these other style facilities that have assisted living or adult apartment style things with memory care as well in them. Those are great if you want to set your loved one up for like a transitionary kind of thing. They're very cool the way they work. But if you're trying to go straight into memory care into one of those facilities, a lot of times they have a waiting list that is reserved for the people that are already in assisted living and things like that. So you may think, oh, I'll just go out and find a space. No, it's not quite that easy. Sometimes they don't have room for places, in places. You instead need to make sure there's space available for your loved one. So sometimes the benefit of starting a loved one onto an assisted living path provides that help of getting somewhere long-term. I went directly to memory care with my mother, but it kind of depends on what your needs are. But you got to be aware that there's not always room available at every place you want to go.
Right. I feel like we could probably talk for another hour about all of these things. And really what we're getting to is surrounding yourself with the knowledge and the people to get you started asking the right questions. And like you said, once you ask that first question, that'll spur another question and another one and another one.
Yeah. I think the most important thing I could probably get across to anybody is this is a path you can't do by yourself, nor should you. And in most circumstances, the medical people that you surround yourself with and your loved one with become family. Right now, with the restrictions that are in place in Colorado, I'm not able to see my mother up close. I can wave at her through a window, or they have, some protocols that are available, but I used to take her for a walk. I can't do that. So who are the people that she is surrounded with right now? That's her family at this point. And you got to look at the trust issue here. You got to say, do I trust these people to be there for my loved one? And that's a hard thing to deal with, because you want your loved one to be taken care of in a particular manner. You want them to do things, and you can become like helicopter parent loved one,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty of that. But you have to recognize that they have experience you don't have, and they know what to do. You got to trust them. You just do. I mean, we all go through the helping mom or dad or husband or wife doing some uncomfortable things, for the first time. And, well, these folks do that on a daily basis, and they can help you get through that stuff. So trust is hard.
It's definitely a balance. I think you talked about being a helicopter loved one parent, right? But I think it's a balance between the trust and trusting the people that you've put your mom with, and that they know what they're doing, and also being an advocate for your mom or for your loved one as well.
You have to know what your parent or loved one needs,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to be realistic about what can be given.
Absolutely.
Especially right now. I mean, this is a messed up time. Everybody's stressed. So don't make your expectations crazy. Make them realistic. I actually had somebody within the Applewood system once tell me recently, you may want X, Y, Z. Start with X. Don't get your laundry list too big. You got to work within what is possible, and trust the people that are taking care of your loved one to do the right thing. I think trust is you're handing your loved one over to somebody else, and that's hard. But trust, find that. It'll be okay.
Right. And I think at Applewood, we always talk about, and I know a lot of other places do too, the care team, right? The team at the house that's caring for your loved one. And I think it also includes the family member. It has to. The family member is included in that care team. And when we're all working towards the same goal of providing the best care we can for your loved one, and you're providing the best care that you can because you know their care needs, then we're all working together towards that common goal.
This is a observation I could share. I had my mother in a daycare that was a very nice daycare. The people that ran it were very professional, super nice. It was a nice place. But it didn't quite fit her. It was pretty, nice. Everything was gorgeous and cool, And then I got her to a place that was a little more low-key, a little more rough around the edges. The difference was the people that were running it seemed to know a little more about my mom's needs and could keep her engaged, with stuff. And she was much happier. And you can tell their happiness by their reaction emotionally to this, their anxiety, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, trust. You got to trust the people, and don't always think because the facility is gorgeous that it's going to be the best place. Again, I'm not disparaging any place. They all try very hard to do the best they can and provide great care. But you need to find out who's good with you, and as you said, which care team works best with your situation.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect little nugget to end on, a little note to end on there. And Jimmy, I want to say thank you for sharing all about your mom, all about your experiences. Really appreciate it.
Don't panic. There are people who care out there, and you're not the only person going through this. Everybody can help. So I like Applewood, our house, because of its community feel. It's good for my family. It's great. So I would definitely recommend people talk to the folks at Applewood. It's fantastic. But if it's not the right facility, then look for others that fit your needs.
Find the right fit. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Before we end, I wanted to also reach out. We talked a lot today about support groups and things like that. Applewood, our house, does offer a support group. It's available. You can be anywhere in the country right now because it's on Zoom. You do not need to have your loved one at Applewood. We want to help support you wherever you are. It's called the Care Cafe. You can always reach out to us on Facebook. You can send us a message on our website. We want to connect you with the people that we can. If you are looking for a support group, we'd love for you to consider Care Cafe. We appreciate your time. We'll see you in 2 Wednesdays. Thank you again, Jimmy, for your time. We appreciate it.